Hey Josh, who's the worst contract in the NBA?
That's easy. It's Monty Williams.
No, I said in the NBA.
In that case, we're going to have a long, hard talk about Zach LaVine. When the Bulls made 2 trades this summer, blowing up their future, people were shocked that they kept Zach LaVine. Too much Zach hate. Dude is a beast. Y'all will take him for granted. I'd rather see him have a turnaround season than see him walk, but that's just me. How can Zach LaVine be the Bulls' best player, but also completely untradeable? Hell, he might even be unplayable. No team wants him, and it's not because he's bad at basketball. The Bulls' current lineup is Coby White, Josh Giddey, Zach LaVine, Patrick Williams, and Nikola Vucevic. Vooch is so slow, he has a problem staying in front of high schoolers, though not anywhere near as bad as Josh Giddey, who has a hard time staying behind them. Also, honorable mention, the contract of Lonzo Ball. This Bulls team is stuck. They're not good enough to win meaningful games, but they're too good to properly tank if they play their veterans. So why are the Bulls holding on to Zach LaVine? Because nobody can afford him anymore. LaVine's value was so high just 2 years ago in the summer of 2022. The Bulls could have gotten a star young player and multiple draft picks if they traded LaVine. But they held on to him, and then everything changed on July 1st, 2023. Do you know what that date means, Jake?
I had no idea.
That is when the NBA announced its new second apron rule. What is the second apron? I'm glad you asked. It's how Adam Silver wants to destroy super teams and create league-wide parity for championships. Adam Silver doesn't want some people going home alone and other people going home with dimes. No, he wants us all in monogamous relationships with 4s. Here's how he did it. When a team hits the first apron, which is a percentage of the salary cap, they lose the rights to sign players with the normal mid-level exception. This year, that impacted the Boston Celtics, Denver Nuggets, Golden State Warriors, Miami Heat, Milwaukee Bucks, Phoenix Suns, and LA Clippers. Probably the best example of the punishment of the apron is the Denver Nuggets, losing Bruce Brown last summer and KCP this summer despite wanting to keep together a championship core. But that's nowhere near as bad as hitting the dreaded second apron, aka the Phoenix Suns club. Once you hit the second apron, you aren't just limited to 100% salary matching in trades, but second apron teams are also prohibited from combining multiple players in a trade. That means you have to do 1-for-1 trades, and you can't sign anyone using the exemptions. Not only that, second apron teams won't be able to trade their first round pick 7 years into the future. Your draft pick will get frozen at the bottom of the first round.
That's pretty harsh.
You can say that again.
That's pretty harsh.
Contending teams can't afford to take on Zach LaVine's $138 million contract covering the next 3 years of his play. What they really can't afford to do, though, is be in the second apron. So now, despite being one of the best scoring players in the world, Zach LaVine is toxic. How did this happen? Teams used to be obsessed with Zach LaVine. Minnesota drafted LaVine at 13th overall, 11 slots after Joel Embiid and 28 slots before Nikola Jokic. Nobody knew just how high he would rise. Zach won not 1, but 2 slam dunk contests, making him the best dunking Chicago Bull of all time. But LaVine was more than just a dunker. In the 21-22 season, LaVine had a 60.5% true shooting on 28% usage. That was the highest among all guards in the NBA with at least 28% usage, higher than players like Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving, and Trae Young. I'll bet you didn't know that, Jake.
I actually sourced that stat. That was mine.
There was a rumor in that summer of 22 that the Heat were interested in trading Kyle Lowry plus another young player, maybe Tyler Hero, along with multiple first-round draft picks. Not only that, but the New York Knicks were interested in taking on the contract of Zach LaVine in exchange for Isaiah Quickley, RJ Barrett, and up to 2 first-round draft picks. LaVine was a haul. In fact, LaVine was always worth something. Look at the price that the Bulls paid to acquire him. Zach LaVine was traded along with Lauri Markkanen in exchange for Jimmy Butler. And this was a trade that was great value for both teams. People had no idea what Lauri would become, but for the Timberwolves, Jimmy was able to help them get back to the playoffs. And for the Bulls, they were able to get 2 major trade assets. But now, teams wouldn't take Zach LaVine if you pay them to. In fact, the Bulls are trying to attach their own draft picks just to get rid of him, and nobody is biting. And that's crazy, because we're talking about a walking bucket. A man who can score at every level and straight up take over a game on offense. How can a player who can do this, and even things like this, while only being 29, really be a toxic contract in the same league where this summer we saw a 35-year-old DeMar DeRozan and a 34-year-old Paul George get large multi-year contracts? Well, the answer is there's that pesky second apron again. See, the teams that are rebuilding right now value cap flexibility and paying their own draft picks to stay instead of acquiring veteran players. And the contending teams literally cannot afford to make room for the $50 million a year Zach LaVine contract anymore. So he's stuck in this second apron purgatory where he's good enough to be the third option on a championship team, maybe even the second option if the team was beautifully constructed. I'm looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder, who could definitely win a championship with LaVine as their number 2 scorer. And players still love Zach LaVine. DeMar DeRozan said, Zach's ability to score is incredible, and he's one of the most talented players I've ever played with. Kevin Durant said, LaVine is a freak athlete with an amazing jump shot. He's got the whole package. When the Slim Reaper says you have the whole package, you have the whole package. LeBron James said, LaVine was a tough cover. He can shoot from anywhere, and his athleticism is off the charts. Even Paul George commented on it, saying his resilience and ability to bounce back from injuries and still play at a high level is impressive. And yet, despite being 5 years older and having had injuries of his own, Paul George is landing on contending teams, and Zach LaVine is stuck in the Chicago Bulls purgatory. But there's hope. There's hope, Jake.
There is?
Yes. A small amount of desperation that I'm going to choose to call hope because my therapist says I need to be more positive. There's 4 teams that I've looked at where you could say a Zach LaVine trade makes sense. The Miami Heat, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Warriors. All of these teams are past their prime. All of these teams are dedicated to winning now, and none of these teams are good enough to actually do it. So why not gut the future, burn the bridges, trade the draft picks, go over the second apron, and acquire a player that if he's healthy and if things go right, you could win a ring with. In a lot of ways, Zach LaVine and these 4 teams are the perfect marriage. Nobody wants to dance with them, and you don't want to go home alone. So what do you think? Which of these 4 over-the-hill teams should take the bullet and bring on all-star shooting guard Zach LaVine? Is there a team that you think Zach could go to beyond the 4 that we've talked about? Do you still think Zach LaVine has any all-star potential left? Subscribe.